Find functional hilarity at the Biffa Emporium. Girl, it's what I heard. Allegedly, it's just the word. Allegedly, it's on the street. Allegedly, I sing to the beat. Allegedly, lee, lee, lee. Allegedly, lee, lee, lee. Allegedly, lee, lee, lee. Allegedly.
All right, let's see what Carlos King has to say to Kenya more. Well, Kenya less. So we start with reminiscing about Kenya's favorite interview moment, and she says he should do a show with all of the reality show greats. I don't know, I feel like he'll be trying to snatch stories and steal brands, but go ahead and work with him, Kenya. She said Carlos doesn't coddle anyone's feelings. Have you seen any of his interviews? But Kenya will lie about having a man, so she'll lie to Carlos's face. This woman is not only my sister and my friend, and I know the raindrops don't think I like Kenya, but I love Kenya. So Kenya wasn't able to do his late night show, but now she's on the podcast. Did Portia and Kenya save the franchise from sinking? Yes. Yes, they did. So Carlos asked, when did Kenya know she would be a success? And she said basically she did it in spite of her mother, who said she would dog her for the rest of her life. Her mom tried to sabotage her second pageant win. So Carlos brings up when she ambushed her mama and Lori took up for her, and she said after that, the fans didn't want Lori around no more. I mean, I could see both sides on that one. I feel like publicly ambushing your mom is a little much, but also there should be a level of grow up. Child Kenya started tearing up and she said, wait a minute, what is this, Oprah? I'm here for the shade. So he wants to see Kenya's softer side of Sears, her vulnerable. Now, Carlos, Kenya is no longer a girl. She's a grown woman, which is kind of why you got to accept if your mama don't want to mess with you, she don't want to mess with you, and you can't embarrass her on camera. Maybe at 18 she could do it. Hell, Ashley was too old to pull this stunt. He says everyone thinks you're mean, evil, vicious, a villain. She's been that, but she can be more, but that's all she shows on camera. Kenya says her responses are so lethal that nobody remembers what happened to cause them, and she might have a little bit of a point on that. Carlos asked, do you think it has anything to do with colorism? And she said, well, yeah, I mean, me and Candace Dillard. But you're also true jerks. But then again, we want Gabrice and Gabrisi gone, along with Rob the Throb. Do y'all think that it's colorism that Kenya doesn't have as many fans, or do you think it's just her nasty attitude? Because Candy is also a dark-skinned girl, but she doesn't get the same hate Kenya does. Oh, God, now you're going to say she's acted in everything from Waiting to Exhale to Martin, those little under 5 roles, those little extra credits. Okay, heifer. Oh, goodness. So now Kenya talks about her passion for content creation and that Twa put Will Packard on the map, and she wants to know why she ain't been hired again. He's trying to get a reboot of Twa. Are we really running back to see that movie? Does it really need a sequel? He wants to see Kenya in a Melrose Place, Heather Locklear dramatic role. I mean, I guess. Isn't she in that now? He said, I knew something on season 4 was missing, and I didn't do season 5, but everybody let you know you were the one. And I will say she did bring life and lives to the show. She said she chose to do Housewives because producing movies was getting repetitive, and that's why Carlos left Housewives. Okay, girl. She said, well, my life was stagnant. I had had many long-term relationships and, of course, many proposals. You can't even propose lunch to your friends when y'all go on a trip to South Carolina together, so I don't see a man proposing anything to you but a business deal for a baby. So Miss Lauren suggested her to production for the show when she moved to Atlanta because she was going to try reality there, and that's how she got on Housewives. So she didn't like Nene even when she was watching the show. So they're going back to Kenya's audition period because it used to be more difficult to get into Housewives. Now they just let anybody in. And with No Lip Courtney on and Drop a Lie with Drew, I have to agree. And so they get to talking about Soho House, and finally, Carlos fesses up and says, I remember. Well, I wish you had found somebody there to steal a logo from rather than me. So they had Kenya filming for a month without pay, so they wasn't that sure. I wouldn't let nobody know I worked for that kind of free, but that's just me. So she says in the beginning they'd film you with your people, but you didn't have any people. You were manless. Well, that's why you had to have Walter as a rental. And so I guess you being so incredible, and so I guess your desperate antics were enough to keep you making the cut. They said, how much of a fool will she act? And you said, oh, big fool. She says they need to go back to the old school casting because the heifers need more vetting. So the girls ended up going on strike season 5 because Grand Dragon Zolciak didn't have to film on vacation. So they ended up casting Portia because Kim walked off at that luncheon when her and her ignorant flunky pushed the cameraman. So how her fight started with Portia was she called Portia on correcting her title, but never insulted the heifer and walked off. Production said go get your moment, and she did, and that's when she was put out on the curb. Kenya's like, I love a smart girl. I'm so into a smart girl. So when Portia was just so ditzy and aloof, it didn't do anything for me because I keep a smart, pretty girl. Okay, heifer. But Portia still smarted herself into a richer husband that claims their child. So Kenya says when Phaedra fell out, she had actually confided in her about her mom, that her mom called her an alcoholic and said she had a mental illness, and that's why Kenya was so upset. So Kenya said she was really upset and had to go to therapy over the coochie crack episode. Not for the coochie crack comment itself, because it made her look like she was talking down on young black girls. But what do you think that coochie crack comment was, heifer? I need a little accountability. But you'll never get that in a Carlos King interview. She said I could deal with the fun shade. I was in a 4-star hotel when Nene came in with that white refrigerator. That was just production trying it. So because Kenya's season was so rough, production really did a lot of wooing to get Kenya back for another one. But she never stopped being a butt on the show. What about that? She said her best villain to go up against was Nene. She misses Nene on the show, and I almost do too. This season has been a yawn. Oh, Kenya said, she did build a house, but it got foreclosed on, and now it's under new ownership. You know what? Kenya does have a point. Everybody came at her on the season 5 reunion and the husbands, and she still slayed. It makes my stomach turn every reunion I watch and you're not in the first seat. She ain't always the biggest character every season. Oh God, now she done called the production company and asked why Gabrisi ain't in the middle. Because she has nothing to say. But you know what, I see why you see yourself in her, because she also lies about her relationships. She said they'd never move Nene's seat, they should never move my seat for all I've brought to the show. She said it's about the leads of the show, not story. But if you don't have a story, how are you a lead? Kenya says, I'm like Kyle. I didn't have that much great story this year, but I'm still a star of the show and a face of the franchise. But I'd rather Drew be closest to Andy for those intimate conversations about an actual story rather than your made-up men. Oh, now Kenya wants to know where her spinoffs were. Honey, you came in this Joker 5 years in. And who would you have to spin off with? You can't get anybody to regularly appear on the show with you without embarrassing you. Carlos asked, were you punished when you married Mark Daly off camera? Of course. Everybody knew that. She's like, I could get their point of, they done told my story, but also every time I brought a man on the show, he'd run off. So I was just trying to keep him. She didn't tell anybody about the relation Carlos because he was an ass, clearly. She knew he wasn't shit. Carlos said, look, when I saw that fist bump at your wedding, I thought something was off, and that's why you tried to hide it. She said, I thought that showed we had a great, fun, friendly relationship. No, that man wouldn't kiss you. He said, so was the show why you rushed to the altar with this fool? 'Cause you were always lonely and being called out as the spinster you still are? Kenya, you lying heifer. No, it had nothing to do with the show. Okay, girl. Kenya, saying that you prayed, you worked on yourself, and you went to counseling, you did all that and still ended up with Mark? So we should all just give up now. So Mark is trying to work on a show, and what's holding up the divorce is he wants to use Brooklyn too. He asked, did the show ruin your marriage? Kenya said, no, Mark ruined my marriage. He does seem pretty ale. Oh, God. Now, she said me and Walter are in a real relationship and Phaedra started all those rumors. Girl, you went on 2 dates with him and begged him to come on the show for a $200 paycheck and a dinner at Cheesecake Factory. Actually, dinner for 2, and you weren't one of the 2. So Walter asked Phaedra to be his attorney before he went on the radio and aired you out. Kenya said, but you know what? Everybody on the show got something about them that sticks. Cynthia was weak, Candy's a sugar mama, so I pay for dudes too. All right, well, that was the first half of the interview, so I'm going to see you soon for something.
Alleged what? Alleged who? Allegedly. Don't blame, don't sue. Allegedly. Allegedly.